Okay, so now I just want to do a little describing over here, just to start to indicate that so I'm just, this is the drawing phase, you know, it's going from the biggest shape possible to now just defining just an area even. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. So the marks here, I'm just sort of emulating that plane change. This is the use of the line. Now we're using line in the painting process. A line is, again, one of our visual language tools. Very great way to express emotion, not emotion, but motion, linear motion, the direction of things. Okay, let me redefine this with
So you're really scrubbing in hard now with that edge.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to do a wiggly line. Mm-hmm. So there's gets a little bit of a up and down motion. That feels better. Okay, so we got this angle here. Talked about moving the eye up. Oh, I just got to get some value in there. It's so fun to paint. It's isn't it a great feeling, right? The values are always, that's so important. The values really define a plane. So if we find we go too dark on something, just compare and correct. Compare and correct. So I'm just trying to add a little more of a warm note to the foreground. These little bits of warm really help to push that back. Let's add a little cool to the. That's a really great question people bring up. I remember reading about Edgar Degas. He had a real bad habit of, like, whenever he sold a piece, he'd go visit the collector's home, and then he'd like, "Can I borrow that? I mean, I just want to fix it." And it gets to a point where you feel, okay, it feels resolved, you know. I'm just going to get a little bit of this cool light to show the wash going through the shadow. Okay, so what I'm going to add a little bit darker value just to get that. There's an edge here in the wash that I want to describe. Good question. Will probably be, we talked about the movement going to this point, so I want the eye to move around and travel to that point. This tends to be where my eye is going because there's the most amount of contrast happening there. So it seems to stop there, and I'm hoping the eye will follow. I've got to do something with this edge. That's what's really grabbing us right there. If I soften it, I can change the edge here, but this is kind of the general area because there's that change. So whenever there's a change of plane, our eye is attracted to that spot. A hard edge. Lines that point us to areas. So these lines are all sort of pointing this direction. So that also points to that. So and this is pointing away. So I was just now considering softening this somewhat. And I want the viewer to pick up this edge and travel that way. So the other thing is that as you go away from this area, we can just soften down any sort of descriptions. Let's soften this up a bit. So we're attracted to hard edges. So by softening those down, that helps to lead our eye to that point. This is a very hard edge right there but it points us in. I could soften just the end of it. This is good to step back and do this. It's also got a bright note of color right there, which is helping to pull the eye. The reality, though, of these paintings is that I do not, I never, it's from step A to step B, and then I get to the point it's finished and I'm done for the day. Always in evolution of changes, and so I call it letting it stew. It takes a little time for it to evolve to where I feel like, okay, I'm just done with it. The brush just it helps to soften those edges. That's what I'm finding mostly it's doing. Sometimes it helps me to define a little more brush quality to things. So it's getting to that point where it's like, okay, like you said, it's feeling not done necessarily, but it's like, okay, I'm running out of things I would do with this. I don't want to detail it up. I love works that have a suggestive quality in terms of, it's suggesting things without being too overly detailed. This value here it's breaking that shape up. I know it's there. Let's just soften it down. It's never ending. So let's just put signature on it. But to me, when you see it out in nature and you see those beautiful darks in nature, they're very striking. to me, a desert landscape is different. It feels very much like Oriental calligraphy. A lot of light surface with a dark bark that goes through a lot of light. I like that. That's my personal like in landscapes. To be truthful about that, I'm also digging deep into my reservoir of experiences being out in the desert painting. Knowing there were certain colors I used when I was out, painting. So I'm pulling some of that out as well, that the photo doesn't represent. But we do that constantly. So it's a back and forth where we're using the photo reference to recall memories, but then those memories become almost more valuable. This is a lot warmer than that, but that's how I remember it feeling.
Actually, your picture's better.
Thank you. That's
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.